Hi, my name is Christoph Reichert from CBR Technology. We are a California-based Microsoft Business Central certified partner. And I would like to walk you through a few manufacturing functionality and feature setups inside of a sample company called Kronos USA. This is running Business Central Premium, not the essential product. And in here, I'd like to start off with a few configurations. I'm currently in a role called a manufacturing manager. As such, all of my menus change to reflect the manufacturing environment. And starting off with capacity planning, typically in the software. So when you set up capacity planning and manufacturing module inside of Business Central, you are typically configuring work centers and machine centers. The work centers are a group of work centers that you can group within a particular work center group. So this would be for companies that have multiple manufacturing facilities and they want to separate the various facilities from each other. They would be able to do that with the work center group code. Then the work center itself is the accumulation of multiple machines. In our case here in my sample company, as you can see here, I've configured some milling, painting, pressing, assembly, and quality inspection work centers. They then further get delineated with machine centers. So inside of each one of these work centers, I have machine centers that allow me to have multiple machines defined within each organization. So when I go into the view here, there's the ability to quickly group by these work centers. So I can see how many machines I have in what work center. And then as you set up each machine center and work center, you configure things like a unit of measure for the time. Some companies run their systems by time versus others that run it by piecework. You also have the ability to assign a direct unit cost, indirect percentage cost overhead, and other dimensions that are used for financial management purposes. Of course, the software does support subcontractors, so if you have a subcontractor that performs some of these steps, like sending it out for quality inspections after you produce it, or a sub-assembly that is being worked on by a subcontractor, you would simply set it up as a work center, and the workflow and routing steps would allow you to go through that process. And then you set up things like capacity planning and efficiency ratings. You assign a work center to a shop calendar. The shop calendar is linked to a work shift schedule so that you can run multiple shifts per shop calendar. And you have ability to set up things in this area of the system. Again, once you have a machine center configuration here, you will also see that for each machine, you can have different cost, different percent overhead, different capacity, different efficiencies, and the software will then keep track of things like load factors, calendar loads, absences that you can report. If you have scheduled maintenance on machines, you can put them into the system in advance, and the software will take care of the scheduling accordingly, depending on the entries you made in that part of the system. Again, I briefly mentioned work shifts and shop calendars, and they are set up in here. There's additionally a configuration for stop codes and scrap codes. So stop codes is when you do stop a machine, you have the ability to identify why you're stopping this particular machine. So in the sample company here, I set up maintenance versus operator missing or power outage or other various reasons that could occur. And that will allow you to then analyze your stop codes over a period of time, and you can take appropriate actions to eliminate those sort of stoppages. Most manufacturers also experience some level of scrap, and in the scrap, it's also possible to categorize the type of scrap you are seeing. This could be, raw material problems. This could be machine setup or programming issues. This could be maintenance issue with the machine. Whatever codes and scrap codes are appropriate for your organization would be something you can set up in here. Now, the next thing you need to look through in terms of setup is, of course, the item itself. So I'm going to switch into product design features here and go for the item configuration. And I've prepared a number of things in this company here, in this Kronos sample company. And as you can see here, I'm going through the process of manufacturing a cash drawer. And I'm starting with stainless steel that I purchase, and then I press it into a stainless steel case and a stainless steel drawer. and I then paint them and assemble them in a sub-assembly. And then in my final step, I put the painted stainless steel drawer together with some glide tracks and rubber feet and so forth to produce our final finished good. That is our cash drawer. That's the actual sellable item that we in fact sell to our customers. So this is the sample environment that I've put together here in this demo. And I'd like to show you just in principle on how this comes together. So when you configure, for example, the stainless steel case here that is being made out of this stainless steel sheets, you will be able to see the configuration for the item. There's obviously base unit of measure and category codes and accounting information surrounding cost of the item, tax information, HS, trade information if you're importing the item from overseas. Of course, the software has landed cost capabilities that allow you to insert additional processing cost for acquiring the item. And then in here you have production and manufacturing relevant information. So how do we replenish the item if we are short or need to make more of this item? You have, of course, the choice of purchasing it, producing it in the manufacturing module, assembling it in the assembly module, which is a different module in Business Central, and those are your choices. So in this particular case, I told the system, hey, I'm making it myself, and it's a make-to-stock item versus a make-to-order item, which you can configure on an item-by-item basis, of course. And then you define routing steps and production bill of material components in order to manufacture this item. So in my case here, I put together a number of generic routing steps. So of course you have the ability to generate routing steps that are specific to an item. In my case here, I'm using generic routing steps for certain types of items that I'm making. So if I make, let's say, the same stainless steel case in different dimension, but the process is essentially the same, there would be no reason to create multiple routing steps for the same process. So I'm using a generic routing step, and I'm going into my configuration here to show you what that looks like. And these routing steps are defined in this area here. Let me open this up to show you real quick. You can also jump to a particular area in the software by searching for it, and then finding the window this way. Routing steps can be configured to specify multiple work centers. The work centers and machine centers are both choices in this area. And you can configure setup time, run time, wait time, move time. You can have a fixed scrap quantity, which is a new feature added to Business Central in 2024. And what this is the ability to have a preset quantity that always gets scrapped when you kick off this machine. So there are some machines that once you start a manufacturing process, you have to kind of calibrate the machine or what have you, and that process wastes 1 unit or 2 units while you're going through it. So you can do that. Of course, you have a scrap percentage as well, and this is where you would define this. As you can see here, there's also certification process of the routing steps, and there's versioning of the routing steps. So the versioning works on both routing and bill of materials, and I want to show it to you on the bill of materials side of things because I think it's very relevant in that area more so than the routing steps. But the idea of the version number is that over time you might decide to optimize your workflow or your work progress routing steps, and as such you might update these routing templates. And when that does happen, you might want to track of the various versions you have been using over the years. So there's version control built into routing steps. I'm going to show you the version control on the production bill of materials side of it as well. So if you go to product design and you go to your production bill of material and you pull up, for example, our cash drawer here, which is our finished good, that's the final product. I did configure that in here. As you can see there, you see active versioning control on this bill of material. And why did I do that for this particular item? Is Business Central has a feature in the software called a variant. So a variant is the ability to maintain a single item SKU number without creating multiple items for engineering changes that are put forth for hardware or certain components of your components that you're working with. So in my example that I'm going through here, I'm using a glide track to connect the drawer to the case. And this glide track has experienced a change in design over its lifetime. And in here, I've configured the ability to use multiple revisions. So as you can see here, I've glide track version 1.1 and revision 1.2. And my current today's bill of material is calling for 1.2, but I had previous versions of it that had 1.1 in there. So this is super important in many industries, of course, especially if you have AR or GCC compliant and you have to worry about many other companies and organizations looking over your shoulders with regards to the manufacturing process. So in here, you can also do version tracking. So you can see here where I have multiple versions sorted and available for it. So I went from a 1.1 revision to a 1.2 revision, and there's in fact the ability to review this as well in the matrix per version, where you can go in there and say show for a matrix per version, and this is a display of the changes made to the revisions over time. So you can see here that I have revision 1.0 and 1.1, and most of the components stayed the same, but I went from revision 1.1 for the glide track to 1.2 in my more recent change. So with this version control, you are tracking exactly what changes were made to the system, and obviously that's mission critical for many industries that require this sort of traceability in their system. So this is a bill of material that I'm going in there. Also wanted to highlight the ability to support multiple unit of measures. So in my case here, when I buy the glide tracks, I always buy them in pairs of them. And then I need rubber feet, and they come in set of 4 instead of individual units and things of that nature. To make it even more complicated, and I'm going to show you that to you in a moment here, I've also set up the glide tracks to come in a box of 6. So when I buy them, I don't buy them in pairs, but I buy them in boxes of 6s because that's the only way the vendor is selling them to me. So I'm going to show you how the software deals with all of that when it comes to the order planning and requisition worksheets in the software. So this is a little review of this. I do want to mention one more thing here in the bill of material that you see for this particular item is that in addition to the version control and of course the item configuration here, you can also enter anticipated scrap percentages for each one of the components. And then another piece that's quite critical here is routing link code. So what a routing link code in the Microsoft world is the ability to assign a specific item to a specific routing step. So this is for just-in-time inventory. And you can say, okay, I don't need the rubber feet until the very end of the assembly process, and I need the glide tracks early on the process, and you might have multiple work centers or machine centers set up that call for those components at different stages in the production environment. And then depending on your flushing method, of course, the software supports backwards, forward, and manual flushing. This will trigger functionality in this part of the software. All right, so that's a quick word about production bill of material. And just to kind of give you some sense, of course, you can also insert sub-assemblies as production bombs, which treat the creation of the production orders accordingly. So that's a little bit about the product design. In addition to the item setup, we have the routing setups, production bill of materials, and the routing links that I just mentioned. And then once that's all configured, you basically have the ability to move forward with this transaction. So what I'm going to do in this little demo here today is to create a sales order, and the sales order will trigger the demand for the finished goods. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sales order in my system, so I'm not going to spend any time on this at all. But in here, for example, I have one order from Adaptum Corporation, and they want 10 units of this item of their finished good drawer for this one customer or ship to address, and I'm going to pretend that Adaptum Corp has multiple locations, not just one, and the same customer is also ordering another 20 units for one of the other ship to locations. So in here you have all the item relevant information, and I'm going in there and doing a finished good item that they are going to order, which is the same cash drawer. And it's going to be the same location, and let's say they need 20 units in this particular facility there as well. So this is 2 separate sales orders from the same customer for a total of 30 units that are being needed. So I put in the sales orders as to create sales demand, and the capacity planning and the worksheets is where you create work planning sheets. So there's different. So after I created the sales orders in the sales order system, I now can use a number of worksheets or order planning tools to figure out what I'd like to do. I did configure the item to be sales order to production order linked, so that when I create a production order, I'm actually tracking for what specific sales order is being produced. So in my order planning worksheet, I can go in here and I can plan demand for various parts of the software. In my case, I can do sales demand or all demand. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit calculate plan. And the software will come up and say, okay, you got 2 sales orders in the system for the same item, same company. And the first order is for 10, the other order is for 20. They have different ship to addresses from the sales order perspective, so I wish to keep them separate in the system. And I'm going to go ahead and say make order. And I can make order for all the entire worksheet or just for a specific order that I'm currently highlighting. And there in the production management system, you can have various stages of production order planning. I'm going to put this particular one into firmly planned production order. Go ahead and hit OK. And now, as you can see, my order planning worksheet is blank. Now, just because I created the firmly planned production orders, there are now other items that are being needed because of that. So you can simply go ahead and re-hit calculate plan, and if there was anything else you needed to purchase or to produce, it will come up and tell you what that would be. In my case, I'm good here, and I am going to go into my production order system. As I mentioned to you, we have planned and firmly planned production orders, but there is actually 2 more status type of transactions. There's a simulated production order, which kind of works like a sales quote or a purchase quote. You can put in the transaction, and it will give you all the information relevant to the item, raw material availability, and so forth, but it won't actually commit any inventory or any resources to that production order. Planned and firmly planned production orders are committing resources to the particular production order, but they have been added to Microsoft Solution in order to allow a production manager to properly plan their production orders for future. Once a production order has been released, it will appear in the released production order, and that's the one, those are the transactions you're actually currently working on. So I'm going to go to firmly planned production orders, which is what I added these 2 to, and as you can see here, I have traceability in the system for 10 of that item and 20 of the other item of the same item. And if I open up the transaction, I do have the ability to then, in fact, see my related order that is related to this production order. As you can see here, the production order 1006 is related to sales order number 1010. And of course, from here, you can also open up the sales order quickly and see the information on the sales order as whole as well. So of course, now it's completely linked and referenced to each other, and you now have the ability to continue with the production order. Obviously, there is many options on how you can configure this. As you go through an implementation process, we would discuss all of the various scenarios that apply to your particular organization and configure the system accordingly. So in my case, I've configured it as 1 sales order to 1 production order. Even though it's same item, same customer, I want to keep them separate from each other. So this is how you would do that particular configuration. And then, of course, here you have your routing steps that you have to go through. In my case here, I'm doing the final assembly. So it's going into an assembly work center, and then I call the inspection work center here, as well as my components that are needed for this particular production order. So to finish this production order, I need my painted stainless steel case, I need glide track pair, and I need rubber feed as well to finish this particular one. So now I've produced the various production orders in order to proceed with the process. Now, of course, you can print the production order from right in here. There's a shortage list that will tell you immediately if there's a problem. In my case here, I can get this report if I like to see it, and it would show you what information is, what items are missing. And in my case here, you can see that I am missing the actual rubber feed and pretty much everything that is being used for this particular item. So item availability is minus, and I don't have any units on hand. There's nothing on purchase orders, there's nothing on other sales orders, and I need unit 10. So this is my shortage list of items. If I go into my other print options, I can print the job card. And this is where we have a lot of clients that do a lot of variations on here. This is the Microsoft default form, and it shows you for each work center a separate page. So this is designed to have multiple pages because we have two work centers. The software is printing two job cards, or some people call it travelers, for this particular job that you get, production order that you see here. So that's your job card or traveler. And then there's a material requisition option here as well that basically generates a document to tell you what needs to be acquired requisitioned for this particular item. Now, instead of doing it manually, of course, you can simply go into the routing tools and generate a requisition worksheet for this particular item as well. Okay, so returning back to my order planning worksheet, I'm gonna just run the same worksheet again. I just did that a second ago, and the software will come up and say, okay, you're trying to make the cash drawer, but in order to do that, you have two firmly planned production orders in the system. You're gonna need some other sub-assemblies that need to be produced with the production order, and you need to purchase some raw materials that are purchased items. And I wanted to outline the multi-unit of measure capabilities here. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Glide Track is a pair of two, but we buy it in 6-packs. And because I need 10 or total of 20 actual tracks or 10 pairs of it, that works out to be 1.66 packs of this particular item. And as you can see here, it's 6 packs for that. Now in here you have a default supply from, so of course you can have multiple vendors per item. In my case here, I'm going to go in there and have the ability to drop down from here, and it will tell me where I can buy these items from. So in this case here, let's say this is coming from ABC Distribution as well, and this is all from ABC Distribution. So everything is coming from ABC Distribution, and you could certainly overwrite the quantities that you wish to purchase here as well. So the worksheet comes up and say you need this for that, so I can just say, you know what, let's modify the quantity to order, and we're just going to get 2 here, and we're going to get 3 for this, so a total of 5. Or I could just say, let's make it 3 and 3, whatever I desire to do here, and this is how you would do that. So in this worksheet, you're simply telling the system how many units you want to buy, unit of measure you want to buy, how you acquiring them. In this case, some items are being produced with another production order, and other items are being purchased from a vendor that you can select here. And then, of course, you also have the ability to change the purchase price here as well. So in my case here, I'm configuring all of this like this, and I'd like to proceed with the transaction. So I'm going to hit this button that says Make Orders. So this will now go through and work through this worksheet and create, in my case, 2 additional production orders and a purchase order for a vendor to purchase the raw materials. So I'm going to hit Make Order. I want to process all lines. I could be more granular here as to what I'd like to process as part of this worksheet, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So as this works through, when it's finished, it's sitting here and saying, okay, I'm done with this transaction. And if I go now to my purchasing module, I go to purchasing here, you'll see my most recent PO that was generated was ABC Corporation. And I open this up, and it has the glide tracks and the rubber feet on here. It's still separating the items on here for traceability purposes, but it's clearly showing them on a single PO, as you can see here. And now I would, get this PO released, approved through the approval procedure. So there's a request approval request here, and that would send out an email to my or a notification to my supervisor to approve this PO if that's configured in Business Central. So POs coming in, of course you have the 3-way matching process in there, and the raw materials will be purchased. If you go back into my firmly planned production orders, you will now see that I have 2 additional firmly planned production orders, because in order to make my cash drawer, I will need a painted steel case, which is in turn a manufactured item. So this is a sub-assembly that needs to be put together. If I take a look at my components there, you see I need to make the sub-assembly out of the steel case, the steel drawer, and some black paint in order to make this particular item. So again, I'm going through my regular order planning process here, and I'm going to hit process, calculate, plan, and now the software will compute the additional items needed for this. So as you obviously realize, this is going through stages as you continue on in this process, and now you are seeing that we need to we need to purchase some additional glide tracks, and we need to make the stainless steel cases. So in my case here, I'm going to go ahead and firmly plan making the cases. So I'm going to go in here and say process, make order, and I can just pick this particular order, say OK here. That removes that one from the screen. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the second one, make that one as well. And now this one is produced as well. And so now my system is having additionally created production orders in the system. And now you can see I went from 1 to 2 more to now 4 more production orders for this original finished good. And this will show you the stages you can go through. One word of setup and configuration. The software does allow you to roll all of this into a single production order. So if you prefer not separating these sub-assemblies in their own production orders and you wish to see one production order for all of this, the software can be configured to do that as well. Now coming back to our example here, so now I have a steel case and a steel drawer that I need to produce. If you look at the production order here, you'll see that it has also components to it. In this case, it's just stainless steel. So I'm making the steel drawer out of stainless steel, and I need so many square inches of this material. And you can see the bill of material for this particular item as well. So final go around will be to come back into my order planning worksheet, and with the exception of the glide track, I do believe that additional items need to be purchased. So I'm going to go to calculate plan, and it now comes up and says, hey, you need a bunch of stainless steel for all of this. So again, remember, this whole setup was starting with no inventory on hand. So obviously the software looks at quantity on hand and quantity on purchase orders that have already been issued, and it would make a recommendation to you. Again, the process will be the same, and I wanted to leave it here because I don't think it's necessary to go through the purchase process over and over again. But essentially now I need to purchase stainless steel, and here I can select the stainless steel provider that I wish to purchase stainless steel from, and I'll keep going with my ABC company here, and I would fill this out and hit generate transactions, and would create a PO for that particular item as well. So that's your auto generation of raw materials for MRP planning and MPS planning. And you can do that with the order planning tools, and there's other tools in the software that basically do the same thing as well. So that's in a nutshell the process. Once you're actually recording your production orders, you would then go into the software and you would release a firmly planned production order into a release production order. So the way this would work, you would simply go in here and say, okay, this needs to be produced now, and I'm going to go ahead and release it. So all you do is change status, change it from firmly planned to released, and hit yes here. And now this particular production order has been released to the shop floor. And when I go to my release production orders, you now see this stainless steel production order in the software. Now, once it's in a release production order, you'll have a new option in here, which is your production journal. And your production journal is where you're recording your consumption output here under entry type on the far left. You can see we have two types of entries in our production journal. One is the consumption and one is the output. And you would record the consumption for the raw materials in here, as well as the output of units in the various stages. So in this particular example, I'm just going through two steps. One is the actual pressing of the stainless steel, and then the second piece is a quality inspection process, which I have a separate department set up for in the software as well. If you have the quality inspection module from Inside Works, you have the ability to record additional transactions in here as well, or transactional information here as well. Highly recommended for any industries that need to track output quality inspection results at various stages of their output and consumption. And basically, once you're done with this, you would be posting these transactions. It would update your, inventory, your stages of the production order, and then take you all the way through the process. So again, I don't want to go into the entire process because the rest of this is just execution of sample transactions. But I did want to give you a sense for the configuration and the capabilities of the software and the ability to work with the software in this matter. A couple of things to also be aware of as a graphical designer, scheduler here as well. This scheduler is also a product that's available that would show you production orders and or various orders that you can set up filters for, views for, sorted by these centers, work centers that we configured. So if you recall, we had various work centers with various machines inside of them, and this is where you would assign a production order to a specific machine. So that was one of the other pieces is in our routing steps, we only assigned it to a work center, but the production manager would use this tool to actually assign it to a specific machine. So in here, they would see the job production orders lining up, and then they would simply drag and drop it onto a particular machine that they wanted to do this work on. And then if you have a last moment failure on a milling machine or one of these other resources, you'd have the ability to quickly see all the jobs that are assigned to that particular machine center and then work with scheduling to reassign them to other machines or do, push it out in other options that you have during that process. Yes, and this is basically a review of the manufacturing module capabilities of the software. Of course, there is complete work center, machine center capacity planning. That's part of that. And being able to backward flush and forward flush and backward plan and forward plan based on due dates is all standard functionality in Business Central. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, my name is Christoph Reichert with CBR Technology. We're located in California and be happy to work with the organization on the implementation of Business Central. Take care.